Welcome to In My Experience, the Downfall of People Pleasing. So, if you've heard the last few episodes, or really I should say in general, I have a people pleasing problem. And my mother was a people pleaser. My grandmother I come from a long lineage of women that could just people please. And I think some of their bitterness and their anger, including my own, comes from the fact that no matter how much we hear about the pitfalls of people pleasing, maybe I should call the episode that. Um, we just, it's like when it's in action, we don't see the potential doom. Like, I don't see pleasing someone, taking care of their pleasure, putting attention to their pleasure, noticing what is their pleasure as a potential of screwing me over. Because I really do see it as love. I mean, you pay attention when you love somebody. You pay attention what they like, what they dislike. You reveal what you like or dislike in hopes that if they love you, they will know that and you can trust that with them. That you can trust your pleasure with them. And yet, nope. Absolutely not. I can't say that's happened. It's nope, nope, nope. It just hasn't. I don't know. It's something I mentioned. It's like it's problematic, but is it a problem? Like, is it the chicken or the egg, right? The apple or the tree? No one has ever said that last one, but I'm saying it. Is it this kind of? Is it that this is the right formula that I have used with the wrong people? Like I will never think that noticing and being detailed in how you please someone or how they want to be pleased is a bad thing. But if you keep on pleasing the wrong people or thinking you can please everybody, that's the pitfall. And my grandmother and my mother did. They, I think one of the biggest frustrations I have had with my mother, and I think it's why we will never have the relationship I want, this deep, beautiful, enriching, equal relationship, is that my mother has and it could be a very esoteric, very Christian mentality of how you give to others is how you receive. The problem is no. You should give from your overflows. And overflows are not necessarily economic, they're emotional, they're mental. Like, if you can't handle depressed people because you're depressed, please do not become their guru. Do not become their person because you need a person. You actually need to be your person. And you're not a bad person for saying that you're in such a bad place with yourself. You cannot be making sure that everyone is good. There's nothing wrong with that. But even as I'm saying that, and maybe as a listener, you are thinking it too. It's like, ooh, that's bad. But what if they're hurting? And like, you gotta heal the hurt, but you're hurting. And I wonder sometimes if the arrogance is believing that despite feeling wounded, you forget your wounds just to heal the world. Or you kind of, one of the things that I think is a little bit arrogant of me is like, well, if I don't have that issue, right? There is this kind of comparing pain, comparing trauma, and kind of thinking that if I'm not in hell, it doesn't matter that I'm in like some overheated cave, right? Like, there is this feeling of, as long as if it's like judging people's problems and ignoring that you have your own, because they may not measure up, they may not be as bad, they may not be the same, but you still got them. And I've always felt with my mother that one of my biggest frustrations with her is that she was very, very giving, but resentful that no one gave to her. And she really looked to me to give to her and heal her in ways that she didn't do for herself, but also continued to get wounded by. In the sense of, if I feel everybody uses me, then why do I consistently put myself in the position of being used? If I feel overwhelmed by how much I help people, but I have no one to call, then why am I helping? And I inherited my mother's wounds. I inherited her insecurities. I inherited her battles. I became her warrior, her healer. And sometimes I feel her resentment towards me as a daughter is the same that my grandmother shared with her. And it's this kind of, I made my child, when we define children as unconditional love, we we always tie it more towards the parent because it is a love that, unfortunately my father didn't feel. It's a love that is like, wow, like it is just breathless and beautiful, and you will do anything for that baby. That baby is redefining you in ways that are gorgeous and terrifying because you want to give them the best world, yet you don't even know if you're the best in your own world. What? They make you feel like God in a way that makes your humanity so freaking fragile. And I But the truth is, it's children that are unconditional. We are so ready to love you. Like we are so ready to be impressed and to believe you. And that's the tragedy of having an abusive father or abusive parent. Like we are so children are so pure, they are so freaking ready. Like they are just, yes, one giant human embodiment of yes. Yes, I'm going to love you no matter what. Yes, I'm going to follow you. Yes, I'm going to believe in you. Yes, 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 yes. And there's something invigorating about that energy, but children grow. And if you keep on handing them your pain, they're going to grow painfully. And that purity that you once exalted is going to gray a little bit. And you're going to judge it for graying while simultaneously saying you had no involvement in how it hued. And that's what I felt with my mom. Like she will always say, you used to be such a go getter. You need to go back to that. And she killed that a little bit. Her and my dad more so, but she did too. In this kind of, you know, if I didn't want to be made fun of, I was humorless and I was sensitive, but yet I was the funniest person to make her laugh. So that kind of weird dynamic of just my entire existence is only measured by how good or bad you feel about your life. And I don't exist beyond your life and how I've impacted it. And I don't necessarily know if that's true or if that's supposed to be. And that's what I'm kind of wondering because, cada cabeza es su mundo. Like it's this old Hector Lavoe quote, everybody is their own world. And when you join in any form of partnership, business, romantic, friendship, all partnerships, all relationships in some form are two people joining their worlds together or kind of saying, listen, I'm the main character, but you're joining me. And I was raised by women that all their relationships ended up decentering them from their own lives. They weren't the main character. They were the side character. And they resented that because the thing about being an empath is that you're probably going to attract a narcissist if you don't actually learn that empathy is a beautiful thing, especially when you have it and keep it for yourself, mainly or firstly. Empathy is a gorgeous thing, but there's a difference. You can be empathetic to everyone, but you don't have to have a relationship with everyone. You can have, I have found that my compassion for everybody really does protect me when it's time to move on. I don't have to take so seriously or so bigly, to use a Trump word, how I was rejected. It's not about me. It really was about them. And as I kind of did these last few episodes, I realized, and something I talk about my resentment and I talk about my regrets, particularly in being, maybe I have manic pixie girl syndrome because, like, for the first In the same way I am love bombed by these people, I also can be misleading too because I become the greatest person in their lives to lift them up and have no requirements or no no requirements, and even if I do, it's okay, we can ignore them, like, because one of my biggest battles is I grew up. The strange thing about my childhood is kind of what I was saying. Everybody said I was the funniest person, but if I didn't want to be made fun of, I was humorless and sensitive. Everybody said I was super, 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 super smart and extremely mature for my age, but yet I was treated as silly and as dumb and ditzy. And there are moments in my life where I'm like, I don't think I'm ditzy. I really do think they were just douchey. Like, I don't, like, I'm trying to reassess what were actual flaws versus the images they had of me so that they could excuse why they didn't measure up, why they didn't want to show up for me, why they didn't want to treat me better. And that's really tricky to do, especially in terms of my relationship with my mom, because I have always felt my mother is the version of me that didn't heal, that didn't fight back, that didn't kind of get the bootstraps and say, F it, I'm going for what I want. If you don't want me to have what I want, you could go to hell. You should want hell. I feel like my mother is like a live action cautionary tale for me on the dangers of people pleasing. And it's hard for me to say that because I love my mom, but I don't necessarily love her as a mom. I love her as her first lawyer, as her first defense, as her first friend, as I love everything I had to do for her, all the pain she revealed to me and all the pain we went through together because she ignored her own pain. I love her almost as a human being, like just in this, as a human being that really, really, really needed love and really needed protection and made the mistake of thinking that her child could do that for her without giving it back. And that makes it hard for me to kind of judge her, even though she's judging me. And I think it's because my mother, for the irony of people pleasers is that they are working from a place of emptiness. I think I never thought of it as emptiness because when I'm falling for somebody, I just open up because I'm building faith that this love will be good and it will be magical and it will lead me places, especially safer places. But I also don't know safety, and I don't know safety in myself. So that's where I think it's like I'm using this method without any definition, any prior examples, any it's it's hard to describe. It's like I'm trying to do a scientific experiment, but I've never even opened a science textbook. I don't even know what it is. What is science? It's kind of like that. That's why I say it could be problematic, but is it a problem? And my mother always saw me as an extension of her, which is why I hated how badly she treated herself because she treated me badly. It was kind of like if the self-loathing transferred into kind of irrational thoughts about me. Like the way she resented herself, she swore I resented her. The way she thought she was always doing wrong, I was always doing wrong. And I couldn't make her aware of that because my mother's Achilles heel is thinking that she's the smartest person to get used, the the happiest person to feel isolated. Like it's those weird kind of I in my head I could live in two houses without traveling between them. That kind of dynamic. And my mother became like her mother, which is why daddy recovery is kind of preventative too. I don't want that. I don't want to become my mom. I want to become me. And I think, especially in Latino households, part of the ego, which is driven by pain, is that I somehow am the best survivor. I've gone through things, and you should follow me. I want you to do better than me, but not that better. And I think it boils down to people pleasing. I really do. It's a long ride to the same point, but I think it boils down to this idea that you could people please someone into pleasing you without having ever experienced or observed the intimacy of pleasure with yourself in every way. I mean, that sounded way more sexual than what I had planned, but let's go with it. Emotional, mental, physical, like I think what's really rough about being in a household that treated you like an adult is that if it's treating you like an adult, it means you are handling adult issues and you are being asked to behave like an adult. And pleasure is kind of like your inner child. Pleasure is so childlike and silly and beautiful and young and zesty. And those are things that I felt my childhood was taken from me, particularly because of my dad and my mother's idea that it's almost like we could kind him out of his evil. Because that was my mother's real, genuine belief. We can outkind his malice. And there's just no way. There's just no way. Because we're two different energies. He's malicious, we are kind. He's evil, we're good. Like you're not going to outgood evil into submission, especially when your definition of empathy doesn't have any level of self protection. It's just something you give, 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 but you don't hold for yourself. Because when you hold it for yourself, you protect yourself. And when you protect yourself, you realize this person is only danger. And that was one of the things that made my father such a good con man, I see in perspective, is that he understood. You always hear, it's like they see that a person is light, but they don't acknowledge their light. And my mother didn't acknowledge her light. They see you are the kindest person to have deep wounds. And you are so numb to your wounds, you don't see they're putting their knife in it just so you could bleed kindness into them. And I don't know what my mother feels about people pleasing or pleasure. What I have felt in watching her and in being her in many ways is that it almost it's made me cold, that concept of people pleasing, as and thinking that remembering and holding and embodying the details of how other people are pleased is somehow going to transfer to genuine love. Because it's not just about other people, it's about your people. And I want to be kind, I want to stay soft, but I think what right now what I'm trying to assess is I want to be soft with everybody because that's my nature, but I want to have better selectivity and intuition and assessment over who I can get softer with. Like I do want to be friendly and I do want to be loving and I want to be funny and cool with everybody. But who I can feel warm with and be warmer to, because it really is not having such low standards in terms of opening up, having a guard, keeping things to yourself, gatekeeping a little bit. And I want so you can see who's worth you really opening up to. And my mother was very open. If you she is the type of person, if you don't have a shirt on your back, she will give you her shirt and then you'll leave. I think I put a perfect example. She's somebody, if you're hungry, she will give you her last piece of fruit. And then if you go off and turn that fruit into a fruit farm and never thank her, or at least ship her some strawberries, she will resent it. And you could judge her and say, well, then that's not really altruistic. But the problem is when your love is in the form of service and you are a woman, so you are trained sociologically to stay in a service mentality, that bitterness is inevitable because that bitterness is going to be taken advantage of. And we can't act like there isn't a promise of provision. You help me, I help you. We can't act like there's some level of reciprocity because the whole point of male female dynamics is the irony of male female dynamics is women are defined as the most emotionally uncontrollable, unstable beings to oddly have to handle and maintain the emotional and mental stability of their households. It's like, well, what? In exchange, the man will materially provide for said household. And it's like, and if you think we're not working in that dynamic, I love you. I love you for thinking that because it's stupid. History is repetitive, and what I have found with history, why it is repetitive, is that we reshape wounds. We don't actually heal them. We don't do surgery. We just kind of cover them up. It's like a groundhog coming out of different holes. Like we don't just plug the damn hole. And we're angry at each other for failing. How could you put your emotional mental stability on me? You want me to materially take care of a household? Do you know how expensive life is? Let alone if you want a fun life. That's really expensive. It's a lot of unrealistic pressures on both ends. The difference is, you know, when you are oppressed, there is an expectation. Your definition is inhumane, but your expectation is to be overly humane. And that's the grand irony. You are expected to be a savage. You are defined as a savage, but expected to be a saint. And that's just weird. And that's how people pleasing happens. Damn, that got deep. Check out daddyrecovery.com. Check out theinterviewsatall.com. Check out Hardin on all music platforms.